Please listen until the end of the episode, where we will be reading an official statement from the brand we discussed today regarding the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. Thank you.
You are now entering the memory mortuary, where your childhood is reflected, bisected, and dissected before being laid to rest. So let's see what's on the slab for our morticians today on this episode of The Memory Mortuary.
Another day, another corpse. What the hell? Hey, Andreas, come take a look at this.
Yeah, what's going on?
This cold storage locker, it seems to be jammed.
Let me give it a try.
Oh, you're a real handyman there, aren't you?
I'm pretty sure whoever's in this one, their head's too big. It won't let the locker open.
Alright, grab my waist.
We should really save that for when we're not on the clock, Gabe.
No, you idiot. Help me get the fucking locker open. If we don't, the body will stink this place up something foul, okay? Look, you ready?
Ready.
Alright. 3, 2, 1, pull!
Hello and welcome back to the Memory Mortuary. I am your host mortician, Andreas Marangos. I'm joined here today with your co-host mortician, Gabe.
It's your boy.
And I am also joined here today by the voice of our introduction to the Memory Mortuary. She is also a freelance artist, Emily Barksdale.
It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Who is the deceased that you'll be sharing your memories and your love for, or your disdain?
Well, I know I'm here as, a friend of the deceased, but I do have to confess I'm more of an acquaintance of the deceased. I'm just kind of here out of respect, but we are here to pay our respects to the Bratz doll in general. The Bratz brand as a whole, I would say.
The Bratz brand, yes. So right now, the corpse is stuck in the cold storage locker.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get it out past the head.
Right.
I'm going to do what I usually do in these episodes, and I'm going to read a sentence from Wikipedia just to give anybody a general idea of what Bratz is if you don't know. Bratz is an American product line of fashion dolls and merchandise manufactured by MGA Entertainment and created by a dude named Carter Bryant, which, given further investigation, I found that when he originally pitched Bratz, he was told, quote, "To be honest, to me, these things look weird and they look ugly." But you know what? It ended up happening, and it was a huge thing that began back in 2001. So when Gabe grabs the hammer and chisel and starts carving in the birth and death date of this beloved, if not then maybe hated, intellectual property, and that will be the birth date, will be 2001.
Okay.
All right.
I've looked into this a little bit, Bratz, and I have some friends and family who also have a history with this brand. And it's going to be interesting to relive some of this and talk about it.
Okay.
I think it is going to be interesting.
So I'm going to go down my list of 4 big questions, 4 big sections of our program today.
Sure.
This is going to be very different because Gabe and I are fairly unfamiliar with the deceased. Mm-hmm. So we did need to turn to an acquaintance, someone who did know the deceased themselves. Level.
Understandable. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so we're going to break it into 4 sections, but at any point, Gabe and I may have questions in addition throughout those sections.
Sure.
So let's start us off. What was Bratz?
Well, in a nutshell, so just a little bit of background of where I'm coming from. I'm 24. I was born in 95. So in 2001, I was 6. So essentially what I kind of saw Bratz as was kind of like an alternative to a Barbie doll, which, you know, they have a lot of similarities, but also a lot of very striking differences. So I think really what it was at the time, and both in hindsight right now, it was pretty much an alternative to Barbie. And especially looking back now, they really made a point to have it be very contemporary. And, you know, with my adult thinking cap on, if Barbie was having little girls aspire to adulthood, Bratz was having them aspire to teenage years, if that makes sense.
Okay. Which raises the question for me of who did you think the demographic was for then?
I mean, the demographic for Barbie and for Bratz are the same. And I'm going to try and not compare them to Barbie so much because Barbie will outlive us all. But I think it was the same demographic. I just think it was just aimed at same age group, but where Barbie has profession, like she has a different profession every doll or something like that. Like Bratz don't have jobs. Bratz are going to clubs. Like, to be quite honest, like I'm being, in all seriousness, the ads
No
for
jobs.
Barbie. No, it's true. The ads for Barbie were like,
They make that
here's
club money.
No, well, so Barbie ads are like, here's Dr. Barbie, here's like teacher Barbie, here's astronaut Barbie having a profession. The Bratz ads, and you can look them up, are literally raves with real people at a rave.
Okay.
With the dolls also at
What's
a rave.
the age of the people?
The age of the people in the ad are probably 15, 16, but that's not who these are aimed at. These are aimed at, like, I was probably the prime demographic, like probably 6 to 9 year old. It's essentially like, this is like my cool babysitter, you know, like, oh, my cool babysitter with braces gets to wear makeup, and that's so cool.
Yeah, like you look at your babysitter when you're a little kid and you think, oh, wow, they're an adult, but really they're like 14.
Oh, yeah.
And your little kid brain can't tell the difference between someone who's tall and someone who's an adult.
Absolutely. And can I tell you a little sidetrack about
sure.
my babysitter? So I had a babysitter named Nikki, and I thought she was an adult. I perceived her to be an adult when I was 5 years old. This cat is attacking me. It really is.
Why don't you go...
It's very hard to have a studio apartment and also a cat.
It's not a studio. There's totally two different rooms.
There's no door, though. Okay. We'll backtrack. When I was
no,
5...
keep that in. That's fine. I think this stuff gives it I think it gives it life.
Personality.
Cut out about my living conditions.
Yeah. So like, okay. What I like see Bratz to be. So when I was 5 years old, I had a babysitter named Nikki. Who lived down the street from me, and I thought she was an adult. She was like 15 years old, but I thought she was the coolest thing. She had braces and glasses, and I was like, yes, like I want to be Nikki. She like had us pause like our VHS movie really quickly because the music video for Oops, I Did It Again was dropping at 8 o'clock on MTV, so we had to switch over to watch it and then switch it back. So I was like, ooh, yes. Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, my babysitter Nikki is Bratz. Does that make sense?
This makes sense. It does make me raise another question that I have actually for Gabe. Gabe,
yes.
Is it in bad taste if we do episodes on people who are still alive? Because I'm pretty sure we could do a Britney Spears one.
Oh, she just burned down her gym.
Yeah, she burned down her gym.
Is she?
That seems like something a Bratz would do.
Yeah.
But
anyway, so yeah, so Bratz
was your babysitter.
Yeah, if like Britney or not Britney. Oh my God, you're making me think about Britney Spears. Barbie is your cool aunt who doesn't have kids yet, which I also had.
The wine aunt.
But Bratz is your cool babysitter who's really 15, but you think she can drive.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was Bratz to you?
Okay, so again, and I'm going to have to give a little bit of background on myself. And
That's good.
And this is why I'm not a friend of the deceased. I'm just an acquaintance of the deceased.
Yeah.
I was a really weird kid.
Did you two have a falling out? You and
Yeah.
Bratz?
At the rave, you punched her out. Like...
Well, no, I'll tell you. So I spent, I want to say ages I want to say 7 to 11.
Nick Cage eating raisins.
No, but I was pretending I lived in the 1800s. And I'm not, and that is not an exaggeration. I went through a very, very prolonged Little House on the Prairie phase. As a result of that,
when did that show come out?
The 1970s. Also, I wasn't just talking about the TV show, of which I have the box set of every season.
Okay.
But I'm talking about the books. I was like ripping through On the Banks of Plum Creek, On the Shores of Silver Lake, all this shit. Little House on the Prairie, Little House on the Big Woods, like all that shit.
So the world of Little House on the Prairie is the equivalent to you as the world of Kento is to Gabe.
I don't know what that is.
What
and
the
Little
f*** is
Prairie
that?
actually happened.
What do you mean? What the what?
Kento? Kento?
Kanto.
Kanto?
Yeah.
You mean Kanto from Gen 1?
Yeah, Kanto.
No, but Little
Why
House
do
on
you
the
pronounce
Prairie
it
was
like that?
Little House on the Prairie was the American West, Andreas. It was real. And
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
So
In any
you
case-
took the equivalent version of the young boys I Want to Be a Cowboy and you took it and ran off with the female version.
Essentially, yes. And what would end up happening is I would spend my days literally outside with my sister and Haley in a red wagon that were like, this is our covered wagon. We would be historically accurate about it. We go to the pantry because that's like your last, like what they call a jumping off point before you like went out into the frontier. And we'd fill our red wagon with granola bars, being like, there's not going to be food out there. We need to go. And then like for the whole rest of the game, we could not go back inside unless we really had to pee.
Culturally accurate, unlike you, Jesus.
Yeah, come on.
No, culturally accurate. Well,
not
and so
shitting behind
as
our
a
words enough.
result, I pretty much rejected anything plastic and anything modern.
So we got a real professional to talk to us about Bratz.
No, but here's the thing. But I still came in contact.
Yes, you did. You did.
And
No,
against my will, I owned a Bratz doll.
Oh.
And I remember exactly where I got it. This is very obscure. In first grade, I was taking Irish step dancing lessons, as you do.
What the fuck is happening, Gabe?
I was not good.
Okay.
That's beside the point. But for Irish step dancing lessons,
That's the equivalent of Gabe's karate. Like,
I mean, I don't know. It was culturally, I'm very Irish. It was,
Yeah.
it was a thing, and
Wait.
I'm not that coordinated.
Okay.
So there was like a Christmas party for like all like the, first grade Irish step dancing things. And the whole thing was like, okay, bring a toy and we're going to do a grab bag kind of thing. Everyone puts your toy in the bag
okay.
and everyone just grabs one at random.
Okay.
It was 2001. Out of the bag, I grabbed Jade, the Bratz doll.
Now I'm gonna pull up a photo of Jade.
Well, I actually have her right
here.
here.
She is.
So, and here's actually where I realized.
So she's pretty. I mean,
she
looks like an alien, but
well, they all look like aliens. I think it's important to point out at this point just the physicality of the Bratz brand, and this is what I was kind of saying. Like they did stand out from Barbies and other fashion dolls because like in the toy aisle, you'd have all the Barbies. You'd have Mycene dolls, which were trying to be Barbies.
okay.
You'd have like the Disney fashion dolls that you would mistake for Barbie, but there's no mistaking these guys for Barbies at all. And I think that's part of the design, and kind of looking back at it from like a marketing standpoint and a design standpoint, it makes sense. There's no way you're going to confuse that with any other kind of doll, but they have ridiculously large heads. They're essentially caricatures, and Barbie's a caricature in some kind of ways. She's got like she's if you put her in like the real world, she's way too tall, her boobs are too big, all this other stuff, but it's not jarring to the eye in the way that Bratz are. Their heads are humongous. They have very small torsos, and that's one of the things that I remember being kind of weird was they have really, really small torsos, and they're not really that curvy at all. And I don't know if this was like to combat losing shoes or what, but they, instead of like changing the shoe on the doll, you popped the whole foot off and stuck a whole new foot on.
I think it's great.
So they have
Innovative.
little
What
pet.
did you say, Gabe?
I think it's great. It's innovative.
I think we should check the cadaver. Does it have all?
Is it missing the feet?
Yeah, when you were trying to put the toe tag on, did the whole foot fall off? Like,
There were no toes. It was just a solid shoe.
you had to wrap it around.
I had to
the
wrap
shoe.
around the whole shoe.
Oh my God! So Emily here just pulled up some photos here, and then
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
She
looking
has
at some
photos
too of Jade.
of the leg. Well,
Yeah.
if you look up Bratz doll legs,
They essentially, in like where their ankles are, have these little pegs.
Yeah, I remember those.
I would
Yeah.
totally put some Lego bricks on those.
Well, and they're usually, connected to a wedge heel. But and I don't know really what the purpose of that was. I personally think it was just to combat from like it's a notorious thing of little girls losing shoes and or choking on shoes. But what would happen with us is we just lose the whole foot, and then we just have dolls with no feet. So, I don't know how effective that was.
It was so innovative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's no
Yeah.
different than Barbie's. With the way her foot is structured, she can't stand on her own. So
Right.
I think you have a
right.
better chance of standing a Bratz without any feet.
Well, I think Bratz is similar in the way that it, as a franchise, couldn't stand on its own. But
That's not.
Wait, are you trying to say
necessarily true. We'll get into
Are you
that.
saying that it couldn't stand on its own? Like, are you trying to say Barbie failed?
no, I'm trying to say Bratz failed.
You're saying the legs. Gotcha.
Yeah, you're right there.
Cut that out.
So could you please? So you
I-
said that you received the Bratz doll,
I did,
and then what?
and I was like,
You were
I
disgusted.
didn't say a goddamn thing. I wasn't disgusted, but I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm out here and I shit you not. I had my American Girl doll, who I consider to be historically accurate.
Of course.
And Haley and I made rag dolls because that was historically accurate to Little House on the Prairie. And that's what we
It's making
played
me
with.
sad.
No, we love. Are you fucking okay? We loved our rag dolls. It was amazing. They were crafts, and we made so many of them. They had extended families, and I
Yeah.
still have them. I'll show them to
Yeah,
you.
the
They're in my
sewer
closet.
people love their pet rats too, but we still sort of
We're here for Bratz, people. Okay, so
no, I get where you're coming from though.
wait.
Yeah.
My question is, this is really important. What did you bring to that gift exchange?
I do not remember.
You do not remember? Okay. Because this
It
could have been
prob-
punishment. You could have brought something
Yeah.
pretty bad, and they said, "We're gonna bring a whole life of Bratz upon you." And
So was it
Honestly-
a Beanie Baby?
No, I probably did bring something animal based though.
Oh, maybe
was it an Animorph?
No, no, I
That's a
don't
preview.
know. It was probably like I don't know.
Maybe just a Barbie.
I really don't know.
Maybe
it was just Barbie.
Those pets that you had the codes and you put them on the computer. Did you?
Those didn't exist. Those are
Those-
Webkins, and those didn't exist.
Okay, so this is earlier.
Webkins didn't
Yeah.
exist. Oh, at the time.
Is it? Yeah, this is 2001.
I thought you were trying to say to me that they didn't exist at all. Like, no, that
that
was
was a fever dream you had.
a really, really
For
long
Gabe-
fever dream.
Gabe
Yeah.
sunk his entire communion fund into that.
Yeah.
all the money you got for your
I
confirmation. or
completely
something.
forgot about Webkins. I'm pretty sure my sister had a few because these look familiar, but that's
Yeah.
whatever.
Confirmation or bar mitzvah. Gabe, what's your religious affiliation?
I'm gonna post this Adolf Hitler looking mallard that I found that's a Webkin onto the chat over here so you can see.
We're
Right, so-
really getting off topic.
Yeah, get
This
back.
is what's
back
gonna
on.
happen. This is why these things take 3 years to edit.
Apparently so.
Well, I mean, this is
Um,
only gonna be like an hour long or so we'll be fine.
Yeah. So I don't know.
You didn't know what gift you gave, but you got a Bratz.
I got a Bratz, and I remember I was like, oh, I don't really like this. But all the other girls there were like, oh, you got the good thing. Like, oh, like they were all like, oh, you got the Bratz. And I was like, yes. Yes, I did. I brought her home. I played with her.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. And I think my younger sister, Julia, enjoyed it more. She was more into that kind of thing. And I think she had a couple Bratz dolls of her own. But I just kind of integrated the Bratz in with my Barbie collection. So she'd be the weird cousin that would come over, and the Barbies would kind of it was very meta.
Okay, so it's like the
Like-
equivalent of when a friend comes over to play video games and you hand them the Mad Catz controller. You go, here
Yes.
you go, bro, join me.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Mad Catz controller.
That's for the males to
Sure.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a Mad Catz.
This is for the boys.
Yeah,
I guess so.
the boys back.
But I feel like it's worth noting. So So I feel like Bratz, like looking back at it as an adult, I kind of think it kind of gets a bad rap, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I know it's kind of a joke.
I didn't expect that.
I didn't either until I started looking back to come on this podcast, but I'm like, okay, there's a lot of really great things that are going on here.
That seems to happen with the mortuary. You enter it angry and you leave it.
Well, I wouldn't say angry. I'd just be like, oh, like whatever. It's kind of
like I'm here to trash talk it, and then you dig further into it and you go, you know what? This isn't that bad, and I kind of maybe I miss it, or you end up treasuring the moment you had with it a little bit more. And
yeah, it's like last episode when Gabe said that there is a tech deck dude for everybody. Good work, Gabe.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the race thing, because that's one of the things that I go back and I say, oh, they're actually doing a lot of really great stuff.
Okay, let's talk. Let's
Bratz itself, I think they spun up a lot of different characters within the whole thing, but they had 4 characters that were original, and they were all of different races. So Jade is Asian, Chloe's white, Yasmin I think is either Middle Eastern or African American, and I believe it's Sasha is Hispanic. So right off the bat, they're all kind of ethnically ambiguous, to be quite honest, which is also good. There's a very distinct racial representation there that I don't think you were really seeing with other dolls on the market.
Okay.
And at the same time, they are kind of really trying to keep up with like contemporary fashion, but it's also very avant-garde. Like kind of looking back at it, I feel like I'm like on Project Runway, but the whole thing with them, it's like the tagline for Bratz was like passion for fashion, and that was in every ad. It's like the girls with the passion for fashion, or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that. The slogan was the only girls with passion for fashion. They switched that over to unleash your passion, and then they switched it over to it's good to be a Bratz, which is a strange change, and now they're back to using the only girls with a passion for fashion.
Okay. Well, I'm glad they're back to the original thing, because that was kind of the point. So they had the 4 dolls, and then when they would release collections of dolls, and it's almost like a fashion collection thing, like a Valentino collection. So, but like for kids. So they had one called Tokyo Go-Go.
Okay.
And they had a whole ad campaign for it, and they had all 4 dolls, and they all had different Tokyo inspired clothing and hairstyles and stuff. And so you could have a regular Jade, a Jade Tokyo a Go-Go, which is different than the Sasha Tokyo a Go-Go kind of thing. So it's like they are wearing different themed fashion stuff.
Okay.
If that makes sense. They had like a safari inspired thing. They had a pirates one that was really cool. So they're not dressed as pirates. It's almost like they're fashion cosplaying pirate before cosplaying really was a thing.
Okay,
so it's kind of like it's like high concept doll fashion.
Yeah, okay. So it's not like, Barbie, who, if she dresses as a doctor, she's a doctor.
Correct.
I gotta admit, I do like that more.
Yeah. There's a specific kind of artistry to it that, again, I didn't appreciate at the time, and I kind of, give it more credit. If Barbie's supposed to be like everyday woman, sometimes if she's a businesswoman or a doctor or an astronaut, she is those things. These are like, okay, what's on the runway for kids? So that's kind of where they're coming from. And I don't believe at first they really had any kind of story or any kind of characterization before.
Like a lore.
Right. They were just the dolls, and they were essentially like runway model kind of things. But what is interesting is like the kind of, I want to say like reputation in the popular culture that Bratz has of it being kind of the ghetto. They called it like ghetto Barbie.
Okay.
Which that's problematic to kind of say, because all of these dolls, they're very heavily made up, and they all have very large like lips. And I'm like, okay, so are you saying that they're just black Barbies and that makes them ghetto? Like that's problematic in itself, not on the part of the dolls.
Yes.
But everybody commenting on it. And
so there's nothing within the lore saying that they are stereotypical, quote unquote.
No.
If that's what people are throwing onto the product.
Right, when really, and again, looking back at this as an adult, I'm like, okay, so they're doing avant-garde fashion. There's nothing like hood or anything about that happening here. But somehow it got that kind of reputation. And I don't know if that's media and popular culture projecting onto multi-ethnic dolls that it's ghetto or what.
We just hit like, whoa,
Well, no,
Yeah,
it's true.
this is interesting.
It is interesting. One of the things that I remember when I'm talking about like Bratz and like popular culture was this was years ago. On Saturday Night Live, Kristen Wiig came on because it was the 50th anniversary of Barbie. So Barbie was turning 50 essentially, and Kristen Wiig came on in the like classic kind of like herringbone stripe swimsuit, like the first Barbie had with the thing, and she was Barbie, and she had like very stiff, things. It was funny. She was on Weekend Update with Seth Meyers. And Seth Meyers is like, oh, like, happy birthday, Barbie. You look great for 50. Like, how was your birthday? And she said, oh, it was great. I had all my friends come over, Midge and Skipper. And then a Bratz doll showed up and cut somebody, which everyone laughed at. And I laughed at it at the time because you throw, like, the label. It's like, it's ghetto dolls on this. But then I go back and like, oh, that is really messed up. There's nothing here.
And then what does that do to the kids who were interested in the product?
Right.
Because of the fashion element of it. And now they're associated with
Delinquent behavior.
Yeah, delinquent behavior. Yeah,
Right.
Gabe, that's a great way to put it. Like, oh, wait a minute. No, I like the fact that there's a half a dozen thousand outfits for them to pick, and it's not me picking between whether or not my Bratz isn't either a doctor or a astronaut. My Bratz
She doesn't have to be anything. She could just be dressed nice.
Yes,
She could have
exactly.
interesting fashion choice for that.
Yeah, and
you
then-
know what? I gotta say that is disappointing to hear. I get that. I guess it was funny, the joke, but to throw the whole brand like that under the bus.
And that's certainly not the only thing. That's just the first thing that comes to mind. But that's just kind of like the attitude, and like, that joke's been made a lot of times. So I don't know if that necessarily hurt the brand at all, but it is kind of disappointing that people are kind of projecting that onto it's a doll. Like, it's very strange. People are so weird.
People are passionate about Barbie, and that includes hating its rivals. And I mean, could you even say that Bratz is a rival to Barbie? I mean, you're the one.
See, I always kind of thought it was, but looking at it now, I'm like, they are completely different products.
Yeah.
Like, you want Barbie for one thing, and you want Bratz for another thing. Again, like, am I emulating cool aunt with no kids right now, or am I emulating my cool babysitter? I mean, they're the same category, but it's a completely different ballgame.
They're in the same aisle.
They're in the same aisle, but
they're not fighting for space, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, this is like cool teen culture. Let's go to raves and clubs and experiment with our hair.
Yeah.
And Barbie is, let's get a career. And then Barbie's friends are like, I'm getting married and having a baby.
Yeah.
So if they represent different stages of, I would guess, typical or stereotypical female life, I guess.
And they also represent different stages of perhaps female aspirations. Like, Bratz to me is reading more as they are excited for
free spirit.
Spirit, young adult sort of, I want to just have fun with my youth, while Barbie is now reading to me more as like, I'm looking forward to career life,
family
I would
life,
say
structuredness.
Not that Barbie's not a free spirit.
No.
But maybe like Barbie just has a wider range. So Barbie can be an artist, and she can be a fashion designer, and she can be an equestrian competition person. But
a horse lord.
Sure. but Bratz is specifically fashion. And maybe that's part of the reason why they felt they had to branch out more later. Is like, maybe it's too specific. Because I kind of feel like with a lot of other doll brands, there's the sporty one and the fashion one and the brainy one. And
are you naming Spice Girls?
No, but it's kind of the same thing, So if like, we could do another episode on My Scene, but like My Scene was kind of like that. Like, this girl's into theater and this girl's into writing. And I feel like on a lot of brands, they kind of differentiate those things. So, second grade girls, a group of second grade girls can say, well, you're her and I'm her and you're her. Like, there are options, but we can all play together because you have that doll, I have this doll. Let's bring the dolls together so they can play. If you have a Jade and I have a Jade, like, we can't have two Jades.
Okay, so I've never.
You want to have something.
So, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same. So growing up with a sister who's 2.5 years younger than me, you can't give us the same doll.
Yeah. So that's, you know what? I can relate to that in a way of, If I am bringing my 3 3/4 inch GI Joes to my friend's house, if I know he has Cobra Commander, there's no reason for me to bring Cobra Commander with me to his house.
Right.
What I should be bringing is, he doesn't have Duke. He doesn't have Snake Eyes. He has Storm Shadow. So I get that.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
They did that there are 4 different characters, but it's all fashion related. So it's kind of like they pigeonholed themselves into a specific theme and still gave you options, but there's not a lot to pick from except for names and hair color, skin color.
Did they have any vehicles? I know Barbie has.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of too. Like Barbie has a ton of accessories. A whole house of vehicles, RV, planes.
Right.
And Bratz, I don't recall seeing lots of, hey, take the Bratz dolls to, this cafe that we've made to buy. And I do think I remember them having some cars. I don't know. Here's the thing. I my memories on them are a bit, they've mixed with Barbie because I think everybody who's owned Bratz probably also owned some Barbie stuff, and they were just used together, a lot of the parts.
Right.
So
I actually did some thorough investigation on the subject by typing in Bratz vehicles into Google. And they did have cars, from what I can see.
But they are very specific. So I'm seeing there's Bratz Roll and Runway.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
I remember an ad for that.
Again, it's still fashion. It is a vehicle, but it's still fitting in the theme of their runway models. Yes. It unfolds into a runway.
I like that.
Oh.
Bratz had gimmicky kind of things, but they were mostly fashion accessories where this Bratz is wearing this piece of jewelry. So when you buy the doll in the box, there's also life-size jewelry so you can wear the same necklace as the Bratz. I rewatched a couple ads, and they did have one that was genie themed, which a little problematic.
Yeah.
Because they were it's a faraway place. And it's all right, calm down. You're being progressive. Don't ruin it.
Yeah.
But
we're not doing the Arabian Nights.
It's very mystical.
They were kind of playing Arabian Nights there, and the whole thing was each doll was dressed as a genie, and they all came with a magic lamp, but the lamp was it wasn't a hookah, but it almost was shaped more like a hookah rather than an Aladdin lamp.
I'm going right back to I am undoing what we said earlier about Bratz not being street.
What's the thing? Well, no, see, this was still high thing, but so
hookah's part of their culture. God fucking damn it!
It wasn't a hookah, but it was more vertically shaped than an Aladdin genie lamp or whatever.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And so, but it functioned as a magic 8-ball where you you flipped it over and you shook it and you asked it a question and came up with a little thing.
What kind of answers would it give?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna assume it was Bratz styled answers yes. Yeah. And that started a couple of years ago, but it's gonna be. It's actually,
no matter how you shake it, it always just says "cut her."
No, oh my god, Andreas. No, but it would probably say things "oh, totally" or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, early 2000s lingo for,
I wonder if a modern day one would have "Yas" and "Slay Queen."
It probably would. It would probably just be text message abbreviations.
Yeah.
Yeah. ILY and
just an emoticon.
Maybe just the hashtag or whatever.
Yeah.
The pound sign.
But so the Bratz main gimmick, if aside from the doll and the fashion kind of things, where they also had keychain kind of things.
Okay.
They introduced, not at first, but they eventually introduced pets to the Bratz.
Did they have large heads, or am I thinking of a different toy? I think I'm thinking of
the pets are spelt with a Z. I was curious whether or not they spelt pets with a Z.
Of course
they came as they started as keychains, and then they became available as stuffed animals. So the doll, her animal is a cat. So she comes with a cat, but the cat is a keychain, and you put the keychain on your backpack. So it is still kind of gimmicky.
So pets is part of the Bratz brand.
There are a lot of spin-offs to the Bratz brand.
Pets with his... So
the one that has a shit ton of games on the DS.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
they
Fuck that
video
brand.
games. They had video games. They had movies. Then they had spin-off dolls. So they had Bratz twins, which was essentially the same doll, just dressed up differently. One was liked pink and like fluffy stuff, and the other one was like a rocker chick, but they were twins. Then they
Okay.
had Bratz boys, which essentially
With
paired
a
up
Z.
probably, which paired up every the 4 original dolls with like a boyfriend. So now they can go on dates and stuff like that. Now you have boys in the mix.
Uh-oh.
Then there were Bratz babies.
Uh,
When they really started to reach like we've pigeonholed ourselves too much into the fashion thing.
yeah.
Expand. So
Are the Bratz babies them as babies or their babies?
it's them as babies. So
Okay.
it's baby Jade, baby Sasha, and then you
Okay.
drop you can look them up too. They look weird, but they're no longer fashion dolls. They're like baby dolls.
Okay, now if you don't mind, I just want to, before we lose this track here,
Hmm.
you said there were video games.
I believe so. I think
Yes.
they were like
Yes,
dress
there
up
are. I
things.
actually own
I
one.
have the list here, and
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, Gabe. Did you say you owned one?
I own one because one friend he became
There's no excuse.
he became aware of the joke of let's get Gabe shitty gifts for his birthday.
Oh, that was me. I did that.
Yes, that was
Oh my
you.
God.
And one friend found out, and he said, "I'm going to come to your
I'm
party."
sorry.
I didn't. Well, I wasn't. I didn't. Well, no, I think I did invite him. And he was like, "I'm going to be a little late because I'm getting you a gift." He stopped by a game exchange or something,
Yeah.
and he bought Bratz on the PS1. So this must have been one of.
I think I was there for that.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was
I'm
there for-
actually trying to. Where is their video games? Okay.
I'm counting 13 different games, starting in Bratz 2002 and ending with Bratz Action Heroes with a Z. In
Yes, that was in
between,
2013.
Other various titles I hear here are Bratz Rocket Angels and Bratz Ponies 2,
Bratz Super Babies.
Yep, and Bratz the movie.
Yes,
Yeah,
there was a
that-
Bratz movie. I remember that.
So, just wanted to get that out there. And continue about how the Bratz became babies.
I don't know how the Bratz became babies.
Yeah, what's the lore reason?
I don't know. But then I remember there was Lil Bratz. And I believe
Which are
that
different than Bratz babies.
Yes,
are
I see that
different
here
from
too.
Bratz babies. I believe that they're like a hybrid of like Polly Pocket and Bratz. They were like just smaller Bratz. And then they had Lil Rooms that your Lil Bratz could live in.
I know this is an ill-timed joke, but as you're describing it, it sounds like a plague.
The little
First it took over
Bratz.
the Barbie aisle, then it took over the pet aisle, and now it's taken over the what is it, Micro Machines? What did you say?
What?
Polly Pocket. Polly Pocket.
Polly Pocket. I mean, we'll have a whole thing on Polly Pocket too. I have a lot to say about
Oh.
Polly Pocket. But
Oh no! Why are you dictating all these? We're doing an episode on Polly Pockets, and what was the other one you named?
Emily's gonna go out and kill Polly Pocket herself to drag the corpse in here and say, "Do a review."
oh my god,
Well, there's
there is a live action Bratz movie.
Bratz movie.
Yeah, the Bratz movie. By the way, the budget was
Sorry.
20 million. Box office 26 million. So it made some profit.
Well, I don't know. They probably spent $6 million to advertise.
Oh yeah, the ads. Yeah.
John Voight was in this.
Oh, John Voight.
He's
John Voight plays the principal in the Bratz movie.
I'm
Oh,
gonna,
yeah.
I'm gonna start carving my own name into one of these headstones now.
What else is on your list? You're texting somebody now.
Well, your mom sent me just the letter K, and I don't know if she's mad at me.
Oh,
Here's my last question.
sure.
Gabe and I don't have much that we can say personally about Bratz, but you have said plenty.
I think.
You've given us an idea as outsiders of what Bratz lived for, what Bratz represented. I'm going to interrupt myself for a moment and say that from my understanding, from what Google is telling us, Bratz is still an intellectual property that is carrying on.
Right.
Why do you think it deserves to be on the memory mortuary? Like, what way has it died? If it's still an intellectual property where I can go into the store and buy a Bratz doll, how is it? What faction of it died? What about it died?
It's a message.
I think. Well, not even its message. I just think it's very much a product of its time that I don't know. So I did not know it still existed past 2006. I didn't know it still existed, even
That's
though
usually a good sign of it having to end up on this show.
Right. So even like I was surprised to see that it is still an intellectual property, because I think it probably reached its height. If it started in 2001, it probably reached its peak through like 2003 to 2005. But then I feel like you stopped hearing about it. Even as a kid, I feel like I stopped hearing about it. You know, if I was watching, because I think I was still watching Disney Channel like in the 6th grade.
Okay.
And I don't remember. I don't remember those commercials coming on during Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and stuff like that. And even like in high school when I was babysitting, and we'd have kids shows on, it'd be like toy ad after toy ad after toy ad, and it was never Bratz. It was a bunch of stuff I had never heard of, brand new stuff. So I just hadn't thought about them in forever, and B, just I haven't seen them. If I've gone to a toy store to like get a gift for, you know, my neighbor who's, you know, 5 or something like that, like I never stumble upon a Bratz doll. I don't see other kids, like I don't see little girls playing with Bratz anymore.
It exists for the sake of, if I had to take a leap, it seems to exist because it's a brand that is recognizable enough that some mom may buy it for their kid because they recognize the brand. You know, perhaps maybe it's not searching for a new demographic as much as it's
pandering to us. So if we're
coasting on the fact that like sometimes something becomes so big that the name itself means, oh, you know, what are we going to get our niece for Christmas? Well, she likes dolls, but she has plenty of Barbies. Does she have any Bratz? No, let's get her a Bratz. That's safe. She may like a Bratz doll.
But even nowadays, I feel like that wouldn't even cross like my mind.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Like it's been completely erased from it.
The Jedi archives.
Well, it occupies my brain the same way that like Surge Cola and 3D Doritos does, where like I recognize it was a thing.
When you said that, my heart broke twice.
Well, but you can't get it, and it's like a thing that just they don't make it anymore. Like.
Oh, Surge Cola.
I would expect to stumble. I would expect to stumble like across a Bratz doll in like a Goodwill, but even then, probably not, because I'm like I feel like everyone donated their Bratz dolls 10 years ago, so they're probably not even still there anymore.
Yeah, they're like if you see them in Goodwill, it's the second time they visited.
Right, and I don't even.
They're recurring inmates of this.
And they're not even like old Barbies, where there is a market for Barbie collectors. Like, Trixie Mattel, who I love, she was a very prominent drag queen, also collects vintage Barbies. And depending on the rarity of the Barbie and how old the Barbie is, like those suckers go for a lot of money. And I feel like that doesn't happen. There's not a Bratz collector, not that I'm aware of.
Neither am I. This does make me want to just.
I mean, there's someone out there who collects them.
I'm sure there's someone out there. Yeah, in any case, I just, even though it's technically still alive, it's not. You know?
Yeah, it very much. There are a lot of intellectual properties that came and went, but their residual essence still exists, almost in a ghostly form.
Right.
Where it's not as dead as 3D Doritos.
Yeah.
Like you said, where that is something that you could never find. And the only people who are going to recognize that are people who existed during that time.
Right.
But a child, if you mention Bratz, they toss a coin. They might recognize it because its ghost lingers around in the toy aisles. It's still sort of there, maybe.
I don't know. So
yeah.
And I'm experiencing a weird thing because the kid that I used to babysit from like an infant into like a couple years ago, he just turned 14 today.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I showed him a Bratz doll, he'd be like, "What is that?"
Okay.
And he's 14.
That's enough to put it in the cooler. And
right.
That's why it's in the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of feel I know.
Yeah. I mean, once we take the crowbar to the head, you can get it out of there. We'll be able to.
Yeah.
To dig a really awkward sized hole.
Yeah. Well.
There.
Yeah.
That does answer a question for me, and that brings me back to my original point, because we did segue because I needed to know that why it's on our show. If you had any final words to say to Bratz, what would they be? Positive or negative? Like, when we were talking about, just to give you an example, when we were talking about Tech Deck dudes, we said some pretty negative things.
Well, yeah, so I have thoughts.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'd like to say to Bratz, in a way, I'm kind of sorry that I didn't appreciate you in your time. I think you meant a lot of things to little girls who probably, at the time, again, early 2000s, probably didn't have a lot of representation in dolls as widely available as Bratz. And you presented them all as like 4 friends. It's not like the main one white friend and like her minority friend over here. So I think that was very important, especially for little girls of color. And I think, you're very important to girls that had a particular interest in fashion and fashion design. I wasn't one of those kids, so I didn't appreciate it at the time. But, looking back, I'm like, I'm sure there are a lot of little girls out there who were like, finally, this, here's a thing I can play, that I'm a fashion designer and I can play like high concept fashion, all this other stuff. And, you got to hand it to them for being, at the very least, different with their product design. I mean, again, in a world where everybody's trying to be Barbie, did pretty well for themselves at the time, being very distinct from Barbie. So I got to hand it to them for that. And I don't think that Bratz should be considered just ghetto Barbie. I think there's a lot of layers to Bratz. And I thank them for what they did in their time. I think they are dead and gone.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, or like the, kids that, enjoyed them and really loved them, I think they occupy a very sweet place in their hearts. So thank you, Bratz.
Here. Thank you, Bratz.
Yeah. Bratz.
Sometimes Gabe and I, when we're talking about an old intellectual property that's dead, we will sometimes say, this couldn't exist now. The circumstances are not set. But Bratz feels weird. Because Bratz feels like, by all rights, with all of the social movements and all of the progressivism that's kind of hit within our culture in the past 20 years, which it has been almost 20 years since Bratz started.
Right.
That Bratz would almost thrive the most right now.
Yeah.
So I guess to word my question, it would be, could something like Bratz happen now? Or was it lightning in a bottle? This was the early 2000s when every single toy ever was greenlit. They just greenlit anything and it got through and it made a difference. Now the toy aisles are much thinner.
Well, and I think therein lies the problem. So I don't have kids. I don't even have, appropriate age cousins anymore. Like, I'm very much, I want to say, removed from kid culture going on. I feel like an old lady, but I don't really know what's going on with kids right now. But just from what I'm observing, like on TV and like ads and stuff like that, I feel like there are a lot less physical toys as a whole being marketed to kids right now as there are virtual stuff. So I think the market to get a doll at any kind of doll greenlit, I think is probably a lot harder now than it used to be. And I think, in terms of representation and kind of filling a void in the market for, we need more dolls of color, we need more dolls of different body types. I think in recent years, Barbie has swooped in and filled that. They did recently come out, I want to say 2015, with a wide range of body types and colors and hair.
Plus size Barbie.
I have a blue-haired plus-size Barbie that I love. I feel like Barbie as a larger brand has swooped in and kind of filled that void. And Barbie has also always been a fashion doll, even though they were less like avant-garde than Bratz. I don't want to say she has a monopoly on the market, but
she's thinking of that word, like the inevitable monopolization that comes with American capitalism.
She's got a lot less competitors right now. Okay. In the early 2000s, she had a lot more competitors than she does now, but that's not the case. However, I will say, I feel like a new brand of doll that I've seen just walking through Target or whatever, Monster High dolls look very similar to Bratz. I want to say if Bratz has...
You just opened a whole new can. What is that?
If Bratz has died, their
Monster
descendant
High
is
is
Monster High.
Are you sure they're not the undead versions of them?
Look them up. I mean,
They're
no,
the
it's
zombie
literally...
versions of...
remember
Yeah, it's like a zombie Bratz.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, I don't... Gabe,
Oh, wow,
are you aware
okay.
of these?
No,
I'm
I'm
aware
personally
of
not
them.
aware of what a Monster High is.
Gabe is aware.
Yeah,
Okay.
my sister had a few, and I remember walking by the living room and seeing their show on, and I was like, "What the f*** is this?" You know, there's a
But they've got the same big head kind of
same
thing,
big
right?
head,
Oh my
same
God.
big eyes.
Yeah, they're just like a
Fashion
Frankenstein
focused. Yeah, Frankenstein, a
Yeah.
mummy, a werewolf, I think, vampire. It was
Okay,
odd.
you know what? This is
and it is
so...
it is Mattel. Mattel put out Bratz. So
Well, no. I'm gonna actually correct that just for a moment,
oh, okay.
right? If you don't mind, because this is where I find everything to be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Barbie was put out by Mattel.
Mm-hmm.
Bratz was put out by MGA Entertainment.
Oh.
MGA Entertainment is a subsidiary of... has a subsidiary which is Little Tykes. And so what we have here is we have Little Tykes,
Mm-hmm.
MGA Entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
and then if we go over here,
Can I just say I love Little Tykes' cozy coupe? We all had one, right?
oh yes,
Is that the little yellow and red?
You already know. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So really, what's weird is like there's this big company MGA Entertainment that I didn't really know existed until today, and they own Little Tykes, but this large, which is a subsidiary, this
Mhm.
larger company MGA created Bratz, and I don't see any evidence to say that MGA is associated with Mattel, but Monster High is created by Mattel, the same company that makes Barbie. So Bratz and Monster High, from what I'm looking at, are actually opposites. They're competitors, almost as though Mattel said, we need to
have a Bratz.
we need to have a Bratz. Let's utilize their look and rake the money in for Mattel.
It
Into
launched
some
in
weird
2010.
horror thing.
Yeah, and it
But you
launched
know
in
what's
2010.
really interesting? Okay, so the Monster High,
2010.
we'll probably end up cutting this out because it's not about Bratz anymore.
No,
but
it's fine. I think this is important. I think it's good.
I just feel like, okay, so this looks very Avril Lavigne to me. It's a skull.
Yeah.
Their icon is a skull with little eyelashes on the
I
eye holes
remember.
and a pink bow. And I almost wonder, did somebody say, oh my God, the emo high school girls have children now. We should probably market to their kids. They'll buy their daughter a
The
spooky
scene
vampire
kids.
doll. Yeah, right? I mean,
This
that's
sounds-
probably what happened.
This sounds right. And
Yeah, it does.
what's sad about it is this looks like it's taking something that, and I'm not knocking Monster High.
I don't know
What's there to
anything
knock? I don't know
about it,
anything about
really.
it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a grown ass man, and I'm talking about dolls. But
At least it's not in a creepy way.
no, and it's
Could
not.
be
It's-
talking
it's-
about ponies right now.
Yeah. Looking at this, I'm saying to myself, here's this intellectual property known as Bratz, put together by MGA, has a subsidiary which is Little Tykes, although it's not under the Little Tykes label, and the big heavyweight in the room, which is Barbie from Mattel.
Mhm.
Mattel is saying, let's just take that idea that was really progressive and just turn it into monsters. Like,
Yeah.
let's take their look and let's just make it monsters because we want to serve a demographic that isn't. Yeah. So that's
We want to market to little girls whose mothers were wearing pink plaid skirts with chains on
Their
them.
hair were dried up and colored. Yeah.
Yeah,
so, that was interesting.
that is interesting.
That's fantastic.
So I would say in some way that would be a descendant of Bratz, even if it's not a direct descendant of Bratz.
Okay, so that was survived by
Weird.
Survived by Monster High.
Monster High, who killed
But,
it.
but is Monster High still relevant today?
I'll tell
I
you
feel like
this
I
much.
still see Monster High. It launched in 2010, but I feel like it's still a thing.
If-
Again, I don't spend time with kids, so
Yeah.
For anyone who's listening to this and may be excited that we're going to talk about Monster High in an episode,
we're
we
not
won't.
going to talk about it.
If-
We're also not going to talk about ponies, so please don't.
No ponies.
If Monster High is dead, then it will take 15 more years for it to roll into the memory mortuary, all right? Like,
Even though their icon is a skull.
yeah, there's...
They're
Yeah,
begging to die.
this ain't going to happen. So going back to the point, you said your final words.
Yeah.
They were actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
And I am coming out of this with a brand new look at Bratz that I feel is just a lot more respectful, and I'm grateful that it existed for kids that needed it.
Yeah,
Right.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I never really looked at it in that sort of light, where the sort of minority type of aspect, and it's different, and it's actually kind of a shame that there isn't anything like it now, because again the whatever those other ones are called again, the monster ones, unless you have some kid that's a freak monster, then yeah, but it's
Yeah, it is interesting that they decided to erase race altogether, because they're just
yeah.
yeah. Which is that safer, or is it? Who's to say? But yeah.
Well, was it murdered, or did it die of natural causes?
Are you asking me?
I am.
Okay. I would unfortunately have to say I would argue it was natural causes. I think it was a great idea, but again, I think off the bat it pigeonholed itself.
Okay. I get that.
Yeah, and then I think it desperately tried to reinvent itself in a lot of different ways that just weren't sticking, and we can see that with the pets and the babies and the little Bratz and whatever. And I think it just kind of struggled to stay relevant. So I think it was natural causes, and I think it, existed in the time that it did. And I think it helped define I think it certainly helped define toy aisles at the time.
Yeah.
And it's not that, people didn't like it or whatever, but I think it was just very much a product of its time, and nobody took it out, I think.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it wasn't like Barbie created a competing Bratz doll that was superior and completely killed it as a product. It just
it was just there was only so much you could do with the concept.
Yeah.
And I think they did everything they could, and unfortunately, its time has passed, and that's that.
I appreciate you coming and saying what you had to say about.
Well, hold on. I got a hammer and chisel here. So when's the last year?
Oh, what are we setting it to? Okay.
If you're gonna ask me, I'm gonna say 2006.
Hold that chisel.
But hold the chisel. Let's take a look. The birth date is definitely 2001.
To anyone not in the room, I'm currently looking at Gabe hunched over like Igor in front of a big stone tablet with the Bratz logo on it, and he's just foaming at the mouth, waiting to.
I just want to slam this damn thing, get it over with, get this weird body out of here.
Let's look at the slogans. The only girls with a passion for fashion went from 2001 to 2013, but
it's being reused now.
And now it's from 2018 to present.
Yeah.
2013 is pushing it. Oh, here. In 2005, global sales were $2 billion, and by 2006, Bratz had about 40% of the fashion doll market. That was its height.
Well, at 2010, it took a brief hiatus after Mattel's first lawsuit. So
wait.
So Mattel had a lawsuit.
And
MGA won. So.
Okay.
Interesting.
But then they completely overhauled the brand.
Yeah, and nobody.
So let's say 2010.
Let's say 2010.
2010. Okay.
With the Mattel lawsuit with MGA.
You see, I really wish we had this sort of information to work with Tech Deck dudes, but it was very. We just had no idea what the hell was going on with most of it, so we had to just guess.
I think it's because, and I'm going to elevate Bratz here. I think it's because Bratz is something that
left more of an impact.
It's meaningful and Tech Deck Dude was trash.
Well, because again, just like I said in our Tech Deck Dude episodes, Tech Deck Dudes was for the skater culture, and Bratz is for pop culture and fashion, and that's much bigger than skater culture. So yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense as to why we couldn't find much on Tech Deck Dude, and we just had to go with whatever year. What did we pick? Like 2005 or something? 2004? I don't even remember. I chiseled the goddamn thing, and I don't even remember.
I think we're pulling the plug. Here it is. 2010.
2010.
We can decide as the date.
Mhm.
So if you could chisel that in, that would be great.
If you could put under it, almost like as like an epitaph, just the only girls with the passion for fashion.
Of course, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for visiting the Memory Mortuary. Our guest today, as well as our narrator, cover illustrator, and social media manager, is Emily Barksdale. That's me. Our morticians are Andreas Marangos, Esquire, and Gabes, with a Z. Our intro music was composed and performed by Christian Technitel. You can follow us on Instagram at Memory Mortuary. Join us next week as we perform another autopsy here at the Memory Mortuary. We're sorry for your loss. The following is a statement from the Bratz official Instagram. Our hearts break for George Floyd and the Black community. Bratz has always been and always will be about diversity and inclusivity. It is our responsibility to take a stand against racism, and we can't call ourselves inclusive while staying silent about these social injustices right in front of us. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor, Desmond Tutu. Please sign the Justice for George Floyd petition in our bio. Bratz.